I still feel weird sometimes saying that I'm impatient. There's a negative connotation to it, but the truth is it's one of the things that I think if I look back has been most directly correlated with my success. This was probably the moment where I felt the most convicted that I was going to do investment banking. Was one of the banks did in an interview say to me, "We just don't think you have the personality to be an investment banker." And, I do come across, I probably don't sound when I'm excited and talking about things maybe like a traditional investment banker might. And that pissed me off.
Yeah, rightfully.
And that was when I was like, that's ridiculous. There shouldn't be a personality for an investment banker. There should just be a good investment banker. And I think, so yes, absolutely. I think the way I showed up in interviews impacted opportunities. But yeah, it just motivated me.
Yeah. I mean, look at you now. So you've touched on it already, but you have been very outspoken about being vulnerable, ambitious, and impatient, which I think is great and sets the right model. But can you share a bit more about what that means to you? And have you always felt empowered by these qualities, or do you appreciate them more in hindsight?
Impatience has been one that it's taken me time to fully embrace. Um, it is true. I have always been impatient about my career. And I've always just wanted to keep my learning curve steep. So if I was in a job and I felt like, I had not mastered it, but I learned sort of 80% of what I was going to learn, I always wanted to move to the next thing. And you can imagine there are times in your career where that isn't, what the company that you're at is looking for. And I did have times in my career where that was a friction point where I would say like, I want to go do something else, or I want to take on more. And sort of the business need wasn't there, or there was a perspective or an ethos at that company or at one company where it was like, you have to be in a role for 3 years before you can do something else. And I just was so impatient, and that really just didn't comport with what I was looking for in my career. And now I look back and I'm so glad I was impatient. And it's okay. Sometimes what you want in your career doesn't match to what a business's needs are. It's not that the business is bad or wrong or holding you down. It's just there's a mismatch. And I think one thing that I did well is when that occurred, I moved. I just, I just said, you know what? I get it. I'm going to go find something else. And that did allow me, I think in my 20s, to probably get a pretty diverse set of experiences that ultimately ended up helping me a lot. So that I think was one. And I still feel weird sometimes saying that I'm impatient. There's a negative connotation to it. But the truth is, it's one of the things that I think if I look back has been most directly correlated with my success. And I think for me, probably the biggest realization I've had in recent years is, when you do achieve success and you are a woman and you look different, there's a tendency to put the pressure on yourself that you need to always show up as like wildly successful, especially women. Like I think we want to be perfect. We want to be, and part of it is like for ourselves, and part of it is because we know representation matters. And we want everyone, we want to show everybody like, this is what success looks like. Like, look how great I am. I can do it. So can you. And I think for me, what's happened in the last few years is I've gone through ups and downs. I've had the highest highs, and I've also failed publicly. And that is what surprises me the most from that experience is what I've found is that actually showing that you can be perfect and great, and you can be imperfect and flawed is actually really important for young people to see as representation because it makes it much more accessible. And so I've really started to just embrace not just vulnerability, but just like striving very openly and being kind of fearless about anything and everything that can come from that. Because for me, that sort of feels like true power.
Yeah. And I think that's being human is having highs and having lows. Like we all are riding this roller coaster of emotions. We have good days, we have bad days, and we all fail at different levels. The best leaders are absolutely the ones that are willing to own that and speak to that. But I think we also have to allow for women to fail more because I do think that there's a lot of power in that for future generations as well.